My name is Colin Lopez, and I'm an account development executive at VSS focusing on open source software. Thank you for joining me today as we discuss Ansible and its integration with AWS and Azure Cloud Services. Ansible's library of cloud support modules make it easy to provision instances, networks, and complete cloud infrastructure wherever you need. The same simple playbook language you use for application deployment and on-prem virtualization automation also provisions your infrastructure and applies the correct configuration to it. Ansible ensures your cloud deployments work seamlessly across public, private, or hybrid clouds as easily as you can build a single system. Clouds are more than just servers. Regardless if your application environment just consists of them, specific OS configurations, virtual private networks, subnets, and even load balancers. Ansible will ensure the infrastructure meets every need of your application each and every time. Deploying your clouds with Ansible takes out guesswork from the process. You don't have to spend time educating entire teams on how to work with each cloud vendor in your environment, and you can trust that every deployment meets all of your policy every time. The modularity of Ansible's code base allows Ansible to manage today's infrastructure, but also rapidly adapt to new IT needs and requirements from the clouds of tomorrow. Ansible includes over 300 modules spanning hundreds of API endpoints in various public and private clouds, technologies, and vendors. From OpenStack to AWS to GCP and Azure, Ansible has capabilities you need to effectively deploy and manage your infrastructure, including servers and operating, cloud native routing and networking, virtual private networks, access policy and permissions, load balancers, auto scaling policy, and more. Azure supports customers' push to hybrid cloud in the areas of infrastructure, user identity, and management. Using Ansible to automate these Azure services gives organizations the flexibility to run workloads where they best make sense. Ansible's library of Azure modules make it easy to provision instances, networks, and complete Azure infrastructure whenever you need and in any region you require. For example, the same simple playbook language you use for application deployment and on-prem automation also provisions your Azure infrastructure, applying the correct configuration. Azure hosts a lot more than just Windows, and thankfully, Ansible automates it all. Ansible has been designed for cloud deployments from the beginning, and Ansible easily allows you to provision a variety of Azure cloud services. Whether you're building a simple three-tier application or a complicated set of virtual private clouds, services, and applications, your Azure environment can be described in Ansible playbooks and then scaled out across regions. Ansible has modules for many different Azure capabilities, including virtual machines, virtual networks, storage and storage accounts, resource groups, security groups, and resource manager templated deployments. Ansible also has hundreds and hundreds of additional modules that help you manage every aspect of your Linux, Windows, Unix, network infrastructure, and applications, regardless where they're deployed. As your Azure footprint and supporting teams grow, you will realize the need for controls to restrict users' ability to modify certain environments. The answer is simple. Red Hat Ansible Tower gives you an enterprise framework for controlling, securing, and managing Ansible automation with a UI or RESTful API. Ansible helps teams who use Ansible with an extensive set of role-based access controls that ensures users will only have access to the Azure resources, network security systems, security groups, etc., that are required for their job. Plus, Ansible Tower encrypts credentials such as Azure and SSH keys so that you can delegate simple automation jobs to junior employees without giving out the literal keys to the kingdom. No pun intended. When you deploy an application into AWS, you will soon realize that the cloud is much more than a collection of servers in someone else's data center. You now have a fleet of services available to you for rapidly deploying and scaling applications. However, if you continue to manage AWS like just a group of servers, you won't see the full benefit of your migration to the cloud. Ansible automation can help you manage your AWS environment like a fleet of services instead of a collection of servers. From the beginning, Ansible has offered deep support for AWS. Ansible can be used to define, deploy, and manage a wide variety of AWS services. Even the most complicated of AWS environments can easily be described in Ansible playbooks. Once your AWS-based application environments are described with Ansible, you can deploy them again and again, easily scaling out the hundreds or thousands of instances across multiple regions with the same results every time. Ansible has over 1,300 additional modules to help you manage every aspect of your Linux, Windows, Unix, network infrastructure, and application, regardless of where they're deployed. With Ansible, one common language can be used to describe everything deployed in your cloud and your enterprise. Ansible Tower delivers with its extensive set of role-based access controls that ensures users will only have access to the AWS resources that they require for their job, their networks, systems, security groups, etc. Plus, Ansible Tower encrypts credentials such as AWS and SSH keys so that, once again, you can delegate simple automation jobs to junior employees without giving out the actual keys. With Ansible, you can use the same simple playbook language to manage your infrastructure and deploy your application. Use Ansible to define your application locally. Once you can repeatedly deploy that application locally, redeploying it to a different infrastructure is as straightforward as defining your AWS environment and then applying your application's playbook. Now there are no more surprises. With all that said, I want to thank everybody for joining me today in our fourth brief installment of Ansible Automation.